Shenzi, Owen, you're on the screen. Hi.
Hi.
I was going to say, give me a minute or two, but actually, you know how these things work. We've got a bunch of people that are signing up, logging in, playing with Livestorm, working out what button to press to watch you. So we're going to have a quick 60 seconds whilst we let everybody find their way in and get cracking, and then we're going to do the Q&A, the bit that everybody came for. We'll do an introduction to you both as well when we've got a few more people that have signed up and are ready to go. Right, let's see. We'll give everybody a minute or two. Owen, you look very erudite with books behind you. And Shenzi, where are you calling in from today?
I'm coming in from a conference room in our New York City office.
Nice, very good.
By the way, I'm honored both of you guys joined this webinar.
Owen's never done an enterprise alumni webinar before.
Oh, so. Wow.
I have not, which is why I've lined up books to look more intelligent throughout.
Right, we'll give everybody another 5-10 seconds and then we will get cracking. There we go. All right, well, look, I'm going to start by introducing you. And then by the time we get to the bits about asking questions, hopefully we've got everybody on boarded. I can see some questions already coming in. So just for anybody who's joined us already, just to let you know, if you stick your questions in the chat, I'm going to see them, nobody else can, and I'll make sure over the course of the webinar that we either answer them or I'll put them directly to both Shenzi and Owen. So just to set the scene of what we're talking about today, the webinar is about the business case for running an alumni program, which might focus on recruitment or revenue or brand, network intelligence, or all of the above. But when it comes to your data, we're often asked, how can you better track and provide attribution for your goals? So today we're going to speak with Shenzi Ding, who's a co-founder of Merge, and Owen Geddes, who's the COO and CTO of Enterprise Alumni. We're going to talk about the role of integrations in opening up the possibilities for data, adding instant value to your company's alumni program, and providing essentially a really good way to report on return on investment goals. We'll also talk a little bit about how to outline your success criteria in the beginning, how each part of the alumni program's tech stack supports ROI metrics, and also the implications on security and compliance. So lots of good stuff in there. In terms of who we've got on the line, digging in a bit deeper, I've got the bios of Owen and Shenzi here, both brilliant. Owen, who built the world's first web-based corporate intranet.
Wow, you did? I didn't even know that.
That's long time ago, though. Long time.
I was going to say, Shenzi, it's really exciting. And you're like, okay, it totally fits that you found yourself at Enterprise Alumni, but what year did you build that in? He also worked on international mobile data roaming and Bluetooth beacon advertising networks. He also introduced free public Wi-Fi to the UK with an ad-supported model. He defined the global guidelines for digital coupons and built the first marketing implementation of physical web and nearby notifications for Google. I didn't write any of that because that's not what I would have put. But by day, whilst that all sounds extremely impressive, he is the CEO and CTO of Enterprise Alumni, which is the most impressive of all. And I'm delighted that he's able to join us. And then we've got Shenzi Ding, who's the co-founder and CEO of Merge. We're very excited to have you with us, which offers one API to add hundreds of integrations to your product. So prior to Merge, I know that Shenzi served as Chief of Staff at Expanse, which was acquired by Palo Alto Networks, and worked in investment banking roles at, I think you were Credit Suisse, Silver Lake. Shenzi, currently, I think you reside out of New York, although I do know that you sometimes have aspirations to be here on the other side of the water. But if it's okay with you both, I'm going to crack on, get started, and ask you some questions.
All right, let's do it.
Okay.
Yes.
Owen, I'm going to start with you. And by the way, every time we do a webinar, I'm losing my voice. But can you just give us, can we take a step back before we get into the questions on the topic? And can you give us a beginner's guide of sorts to integrations and enterprise alumni, and why, ahead of us talking to Shenzi, we're on a constant journey to ensure that our customers are that are using our platform can do so, can very quickly, can very easily ensure that all the different systems they're using, whether it's a CRM, an ATS, an HR platform, can easily communicate with their alumni platform. Or if I was to shorten all those words, why are integrations and Merge a big enough topic to get a webinar all of their own? Maybe that's an easier way to ask the question.
That is much easier. I can remember the whole question. Okay. So the easy guide, I mean, if you go back 10 or 15 years, alumni networks were pretty much run with pen and paper or maybe an Excel spreadsheet. Fast forward to now, organizations are starting to technologize their alumni networks, and they're building these fantastic collections of people. All of these people really have some affinity to your organization or your brand. They're super useful to you. You're building these huge communities of people who can refer employees to you. Perhaps you can rehire them. They can help you market your business. They can buy from you, etc. But because of, I guess, where alumni came from, very often we see those alumni networks being an island. They're all by themselves, and they tend to be one of the best kept secrets in any organization, which has got this fabulous pool of people who are super willing to help you. And really, integrations is about how you share that with the rest of the organization, and how that becomes a lot more visible. So whether that is figuring out how you can get people into your ATS system when they want to apply for a job with you, because if they've joined your alumni network, you want to give them a bit of a white glove service so they're not just treated like anybody else on the web. Or whether it's because you've got loads of super interesting data about all of those people, it's sharing that with the rest of the organization. Knowing those thousands of people exactly where they work or what they're doing for a living is not just useful to the alumni network. And in fact, an alumni network is a service to the rest of the organization. And that's really what integrations are all about. Turning your network into a service to the rest of your company. And one of the things that we'll talk about today, I suspect, will also be proving the value of your alumni network. Why do you make this investment? What are the benefits that you can see for it as a result? So I think that's probably why this is super important, is for all of those reasons. It makes your alumni network more valuable. And that's certainly why we talk to our customers a lot about it, and why we're really excited to have you here, Shenzi, because what you do makes this immeasurably easier for everybody.
That is absolutely right. So let's kick off and let's go to Shenzi. Before we talk about the technical side of things and alumni platforms and how platforms speak to each other, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about starting Merge, the kind of the why, the how?
Absolutely. So, hi everyone, I'm Shenzi, really excited to be here, and also especially excited about this use case. So I grew up outside of Boston, went to school in New York City, and that's where I met my co-founder, Gil. We both ended up studying CS, so we were in all the same classes, group projects, social group, and naturally we just really got along, and it was really great because years later when I ended up moving to San Francisco, Gil helped me find my first apartment, he helped me find my car, he helped me move into San Francisco and what to do and what not to do. And so naturally when we both ended up at startups that needed a lot of integrations, it was really interesting to hear his point of view on what was going well and not well. And it sounded very familiar to me, even though we were in very different industries. I was, as Emma mentioned, I was chief of staff at a cybersecurity company, and we needed a lot of ticketing integrations. Every time an issue popped up, our customers wanted to be able to export that data into whatever ticketing service that they use. But there wasn't a great way to do that except for manually entering the information every single time there was an update. And so we tried a lot of different things. We tried CSV uploads. We tried launching an API. We tried hiring contractors. And then naturally, we ended up just hiring a lot of engineers to build these integrations in-house. And so I think just seeing how painful this experience was for our company and the P&L impact, because if you didn't build these integrations, you couldn't sell your products because your customers just would have to do that manual work. And it wasn't really a sustainable option for them. And Gil, as a head of engineering at a recruiting tech company that just naturally needs a lot of ATS integrations, we wanted to solve this problem. And so here we are today, 4.5 years later.
Awesome. And I think I'm going to step in via a question that's just been asked, which is, what is CS? So first of all, we're only going to use acronyms after we describe them. So first of all, CS, I'm guessing, is computer science. That's what you studied in college?
It is. I'm sorry about that. Yes, it's computer science.
We've got a bunch of questions about our acronyms, and actually, so I'm gonna head in to start talking about what some of the things that you do are, and then Owen, I'm going to blend it in, and you can talk about how does that practically work for our customers, and how does that, what feels like a very technical topic, actually impact the success of your program. So maybe Shenzi, can you talk to us about, and in fact, you can actually define some of our acronyms, what is a unified API? Can you kind of break it down for anybody who has never even heard of an API before?
Absolutely. So a unified API is a one-to-many API that normalizes data from multiple data sources into one common normalized format. So example with the enterprise alumni use case is instead of building integrations with each individual HRIS system or each individual ATS system, you integrate once into Merge's data model and you're able to offer 60 or hundreds of integrations instantly. Merge completely handles the maintenance. So if there's any API changes, if there's any edge cases with what the how the data comes back, we handle all of that so that companies like Enterprise Alumni don't have to worry about it and they can really focus on their core product. Right now, especially with like how much data there is out in the world, we really help facilitate companies moving faster and being able to add more insights on top of their products, because there is a lot of data in other like places that can oftentimes provide better insights and a better product experience.
And maybe I'm going to pass to you, Owen, because you're the one that thinks about this here, and Shenzi, you'll both have things to add on more questions. How is what they do different from some of the products, tools, names that might be familiar to some people listening, like Zapier, for example?
So this is a great question, and was also, sorry. Oh,
you go.
No,
go. Okay. You finish. Okay. To tap in.
So Zapier is usually meant for internal use cases. So for example, something happens in Slack, I want to trigger an Asana ticket, or there's a Salesforce update, I want to send a message in Slack, and it's meant for internal workflows, and it's meant for any person at a company to use. I love Zapier. I used to use Zapier a lot in my last company, and we still use a lot of triggers and internal workflows at Merge today. But if you're building a product that needs customer-facing integration, so syncing millions of rows, triggering instant updates, posting thousands of updates like every minute, that can't necessarily happen through Zapier because it's so much more complicated and there's so much more information that needs to be sent back and forth. And so what Merge focuses on is specifically that product integrations angle. We're never meant for internal use cases. We're never meant for non-technical use cases either. It's only meant for engineers and product managers who want to add integrations to their products. And that's not quite what any internal workflow product is meant for.
So I might stick with you, Shenzi, and then we're going to pass to Owen to sort of broaden the conversation from the technical stuff. So maybe you can talk about why these are becoming more prevalent and more relevant right now.
Data is just becoming more and more important. And especially with the fragmentation of SaaS and the proliferation of VC money, there's so many companies that are amazing companies that are getting built today. And all of them have different data sources that can really enhance each other. And so increasingly now the average company, I believe, has like 200 or 300 SaaS companies, and they expect that those SaaS companies to integrate with each other. And that's just not really possible for a company to do while also maintaining their core products. And especially with the rise of AI is inherently data hungry. Every single data source can help provide better insights and provide a better product experience. And so right now, there's no better time for Merge to help a lot of these companies accelerate and move faster for a lot cheaper. Previously, the only option was just hiring a lot of engineers, and so only larger companies could really compete. But now Merge is really helping evening the playing field so that every company can offer the same integrations.
Perfect. Well, look, maybe I can pass to Owen. Can you talk to us about, so when you and I are talking to customers, or you're talking to some of our customers, what are the typical hurdles, objections, and blockers? I wonder if we can talk about that. And I wonder if you can talk about that in the context of, Shenzi's just shared what she does, why it matters, why it's important. And it is still quite technical if you're not in any way familiar with any of this. So maybe you can talk about, like, just sort of talk through what Shenzi just kind of relayed and how that impacts your program, and then the typical hurdles, objections, blockers. Let's start to talk about why this can be hard when really it should be really easy.
Yeah, I could probably come at that from two angles, because actually probably also talk about hurdles and blockers and why we wanted to partner with Merge, actually, because if I think about our roadmap as an organization, we looked at this much in the way that you're thinking about it, Shenzi, which is, okay, we've got lots of customers that need to integrate their systems with ours, and that brings them enormous value. So how can we do that? So originally we built open APIs, and any company can come along and they can build into our APIs, which is great. We'll come back to that in a minute when it comes to blockers. But we also wanted to make it much easier. So it was as easy as pressing a button and systems were connected. And we figured out the only real way to do that is to go and talk to all of the vendors directly. and integrate with them at a vendor level. So we started to map out what would that take. So we figured, okay, what size engineering team do we need? And we need business development people to go and speak to each of the vendors and convince them why we're a great company to integrate with. And we figured out that it was going to take us years. It wasn't impossible, but it was going to take forever, which is when we really started to look for a partner and came across Merge, who have instantly done it all. It's like we'd hired a really big engineering team and had all these business development people and managed to get to the solution of being integrated with 100 or 200 big vendors, literally in 24 hours flat, rather than it taking literally years. So that was, for us, really, really important. Finding somebody who's already integrated with vendors is amazing. And Shenzi, thank you. You've done the hard work for lots of people in the industry. That's so cool. When I think about from a customer's perspective, what are the blockers? I guess it comes down to three things. It comes down to money, time, and very much comes down to availability of IT teams. So with the APIs that we've got, anyone can build anything into them. They can build something super complicated, which means you can connect any system to ours. It's only technology. It's all possible. But it's how much time does it take to do that? Because every time you're connecting a customer's system, you're effectively reinventing the wheel. And you're asking either our engineering teams or their engineering teams to build a connector between these two systems and work out some business logic so that they can talk to each other. So that tends to impact on how much time it's going to take to do that. There is always a lag time. It's a number of days, weeks, or months in order to get that in place. And there's always a cost associated with that because people have got to do it and people cost time and money. But ultimately, even when you get over that, there is the availability of IT teams. In any large organization, IT teams typically are not just kicking around with nothing to do. They've got a pretty full dance card. They're pretty busy. They've normally got their next 2 years roadmap figured out. So getting into their queue to do an integration tends to take quite some time. So we found very often customers will go live with their alumni platform effectively as an island, and then it might take them a couple of years before they actually got an integration where they got their IT teams going. And from our perspective, that's crazy. It's like, okay, really you want this integrated on day one. And we'll come on to use cases shortly, I'm sure, as to why you'd want to do that for different individual systems. But connecting with all your big systems on day one gives you maximum value and grows your community really quick. But yeah, ultimately, it always comes back to one thing, which is availability of IT teams with our customers. You know, they're pretty busy.
Perfect, thank you. So maybe, Owen, you can talk to this and then Shenzi will no doubt have things to add. Can you talk through some of the other benefits of sharing data and avoiding silos? And again, look, I've used you on the line. You have a historic career trajectory as techies, and I don't, right? So there's very different language from very different people listening. Some people are entirely focused on alumni and are community managers. Some people are engineers and tech. Some people are alumni curious. We've got a lot of different people on the line. So if you could talk about the benefits of sharing data and avoiding silos, that would be really, really helpful from both of your perspectives.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, if we think about maybe just one or two of the use cases and the benefits around it, we've got a really cool piece of tech that we're rolling out to customers this year, which basically keeps everybody's profile data up to date, which is a real problem, by the way. Typically, knowing where somebody's working and what they're doing is really hard because people are super lazy and they don't update their own profiles. So we got this piece of tech going that means that for all alumni, we know whenever they change job, their profile gets updated. If you want to rehire somebody or you want to do business with them, that's really, really important. The problem with that is that's not just useful to the alumni team. In fact, it's not the alumni team that actually need that information. It's all the other bits of the business that need it. It's the recruiters need to know exactly where people are working, or the business development teams need to know what job somebody's doing and whether they're working for a target client. So really, the integrations are allowing you to tap into that data without necessarily having to ever necessarily even be aware of Enterprise Alumni's platform. We don't necessarily expect all of our customers to give all of their hundreds of thousands of employees direct access to our platform. We expect the data in our platform to flow out into the things that they're using every day. That's how it becomes, really, really useful going forwards.
Perfect. And I mean, look, we know that so many customers and non-customers have to report in some way, shape or size, anything from the most basic, so community size, through to how many people clicked interested in a job, how many got hired, when did the last person interact, and can we show that on our CRM to show the data? So essentially the difference is entirely manual through to entirely automated. Is that right, Owen?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, if you're a business development team and you want to do business with Rolls-Royce tomorrow, if you haven't integrated your platform as a business development team, you would have to know that the alumni network exists. You'd have to look in your internal directory and figure out who runs it. Then you'd have to go through to them and say, hey, can you tell me who we've got in a senior position at Rolls-Royce so that we can potentially speak to them about introing us for some business. That's really, really convoluted, takes ages, and there's a really high chance that it just won't happen because people don't know that that data exists. So connecting those systems together, that's a business development person, salesperson can be in Salesforce and they can just see the data in front of them. They don't even necessarily have to know where it came from. Same as with recruiters. They want to work in their ATS system, other platforms they're used to. They don't want to have to figure out where the alumni network is, what that bit of software is. They just want access to pools of talent and they want it immediately. So it makes all the difference. And it's not just that the job is more difficult, it is the data being used at all actually tends to be the difference.
Yeah, that's true. So a question for you both. I just asked at the beginning, what are some of the hurdles, objections, the blockers? And I wonder if I could ask you two to frame it this way. Owen, when we decided to partner with Merge, what were the questions we knew we had to ask? And Shenzi, what questions do you get asked when introducing what you do? And in particular, we've got some questions here that are coming in quite hard and fast. People are asking, do you get concerns around privacy? Perhaps we can touch on that. So Owen, first from you and then from Shenzi.
Oh, yeah, there were some really obvious questions that we need to ask Merge. And actually, this narrowed the field of partners that we could talk to really quickly, which is lots of our customers are in regulated industries or they are military or government. So it was really clear we needed a partner that could match the certifications, the security, et cetera, that we have, which is we had to find somebody who was ISO 27001, who is SOC 2 Type 2, and is also globally GDPR compliant as well. Those three things is a minimum. There's lots of others as well, but those three things as a minimum was what we're looking for, and they're really hard to find. There are very few organizations that are able to cover those bases. So that was one of the, very boring things that we had to ask Shenzi straight up, which is, can you do this stuff? You can? Amazing. Let's get to the next layer of conversation.
Yeah, and so Shenzi, you must have that when you talk to, again, the big regulated customers or financial services. I mean, do people say, well, hang on a second, what information do you get? Or what are the privacy and security concerns? Can you just chat through that? You must be, seeing as you started the company, you probably have the answer hands down better than anyone else.
Absolutely. So just first off, we only pull data that our customers are asking for. And so our customers select exactly what data that they want to sync from the API providers on behalf of their customers. In addition, the customers only are giving consent. They have to go through an authentication flow that requires many steps to then give access to their data. So they are agreeing to our terms of service. They are consenting to doing the authentication. And then only after that are we able to sync data on behalf of enterprise alumni. And as Owen mentioned, we do have all the certifications before we onboard a single customer. We got, oh wait, by the way, sorry, I know I speak very quickly. I'll slow down a little bit. Before we onboarded a single customer, we got SOC 2 Type 2 certification. We also are ISO 27001 certified, GDPR compliant, CCPA, HIPAA compliant. We have multi-tenants in the US, EU, APAC, and Australia. And we also have a single tenant offering. So if anyone wants to have their own server with only their data, that is absolutely possible as well. In addition, we do encrypt at transit and at rest and add another encryption layer on top. And so the data is very, very secure. My co-founder has a security background, as does our VP engineering. We hired a head of security very early on because this was very important for us as a business. Security really is at our core. It has always been the foundation for our business and is very, very important to us. And it is one of the areas that I would say we spike in just because of how important it is for our customers and their customers.
Perfect. And by the way, you are talking about a lot of for some people, things that are complex or new or different. So for the messages we've received, Shenzi is a mine of information, and I know that she's seen your messages, and she's taken it down 50%. We're going to ask her to slow down another 50%. This is we're onto it. We're onto it. Thank you for the messages, everybody. The great news,
I know. I'm sorry. Everyone tells me I speak too quickly.
The great news is you're making me feel better, but that's because you're doing the answers. And I know what it's like when you've got loads to say and you are this is what you do all day long. So you're like, I know this, I know this, I know this. So thank you. We've got lots of other questions too, but duly noted, and we're working on it. Owen, maybe we can ask you a question when we think about the idea of success in an alumni network, which really is at the heart of why, when we found Merge, we were really excited to find them. So how should alumni community managers think about success and define it? And what's the key role for integrations in the context of proving ROI? Because I can speak for myself. I've never had a conversation with anybody for the first time when they haven't said, everyone's asking me what we can measure, how can we measure it, how can we report on it? So perhaps you can keep that in mind and answer about success, but with integrations in mind.
Yeah, and I think, you mentioned the key word there a few times, which is the first thing is you can only define success by things that you can measure. If you can't measure it, it's intangible, it's fluffy, you can't put a number in front of anybody, you don't know if you're doing well, you don't know what good looks like. So it always boils down to, what are the objectives for your business? What does your investment case look like for starting an alumni network? And then as a result, what can you measure against that? So there tend to be, some pretty typical buckets in alumni that you can put that into. So, one would be recruitment. There's a really obvious measure, which is how many people did you hire from the alumni network? But also there's a bit of a funnel there, which was, okay, how many people looked at jobs? How many people applied for jobs? How many people got a job? What was the time to hire? For alumni as well, which is typically quicker than when it's external. You can also look at measuring things like, okay, how many people were referred into roles and from whom, and what was the success rate of those? So in terms of, success rate on recruitment, very much we look at how many people were looking at jobs, how many people applied, and how many people were successful. And if you think about that in terms of integrations, we kind of have, in pretty much all the use cases, there's sort of two levels of integration. So if we think about recruiting, think about ATS. The first level of integration would be pushing somebody into an ATS system. It's like one-click apply. It's that thing when you go through, LinkedIn or you're in your alumni network, you see a job and you hit the apply button. And rather than having to fill in your entire CV in a form, we've already got that information. It just pumps it straight through into the recruitment system. So that's sort of level one. That's super useful because it's getting more people to apply. But then the next level of the integration is then understanding whether those people actually got the job, so that you don't have to go and ask the recruitment managers necessarily whether somebody was successful in an application. The data is just there. It's available in the platform. You can look at your alumni and say who applied for jobs and how many of them got the role as well. So the data is available. Likewise, we can do the same thing with referrals, etc. So there's some really very easy ones there. And obviously you can look at, once you've got those basic numbers, you can start to look at, what's the lag time in hiring and percentage differences, etc. But they're kind of the key things to look for. If you think about business development, or revenue from your alumni network, very often integrations with a CRM will perform that for you. And again, there's two levels of that. The first level is just synchronizing the profile data between the alumni network and something like Salesforce or Microsoft Dynamics, which gives your sales team access to all their information, and they can, whatever the bounds are within your organization, they can go sell to them. But then the next level of integration is looking at, do we know if there was any successful business that came from an alumni? So rather than just feeding them to sales, you can see whether sales turned that into a tangible bit of revenue. So again, things that you can look at are number of leads effectively developed, and then you can look at whether there was actually successful closing of business. Then I guess the third use case, which is worth talking about very quickly, is HRIS. And this one tends to be, pretty straightforward. HRIS integrations tend to be about getting people, when they're offboarded from your organization, into the alumni network. And the measures
HRIS, your HR system.
Sorry.
Just say, for those that don't ever deal with systems at all, a reminder that is, whatever your people are sitting on. It could be a Workday, an Oracle, something of that sort of thing.
I'm just throwing in acronyms to make sure that you're listening and you can pull me up and police me, Emma, as we go through. So yeah, your HR system.
Today we've had the most questions ever about acronyms, and it is the first time we've ever had two major techies on the line. So I'm just making sure and keeping you in check.
We're just excited we've been described as major techies, so we'll take that. But yeah, the HR integrations is about building your community size. And, you've got two measures there. How big is your community? How many people have you got in the network? It's the first thing. And I guess that's super easy to measure and trend and see how well that's working. But the other one is, out of the people that are offboarded, if 100 people were offboarded in a month or a day or a week, what percentage of those joined the alumni network in terms of they went through and they registered after they've been invited to? So that's a really good key measure as well. That helps you understand how appealing the proposition is that you have for your alumni, because this is all a transaction. Just because you start an alumni network doesn't mean that people want to be part of it. You've got to do something for them as well. So this gives you a really good idea of how well that's working.
Thank you. So, Owen, those use cases are really important to flag because we know that there are alumni leaders, alumni managers who spend the bulk of their time doing extensive manual work. At its most basic, constantly, sometimes on other systems, trying to update just where people are, but also trying to pull together basic information and insight from tons of separate systems, which themselves might not be great. So they're unable to spend time on anything strategic. Whereas by rolling out integrations and with Merge as our partner, obviously it's faster, easier, quicker, and less expensive. The information is there, it's accurate, it's up to date, it's easy to report, and frankly, it helps explain why you need more budget for your alumni program. So I do think that that reciprocally, people are constantly needing more budget and need to explain to people why this matters. The more you can measure, the more you can report, the more you can explain to people why there's been success. Shenzi and Owen, maybe we can talk a little bit about some specific use cases for HR system integration. So maybe community building or boomerang hires. Shenzi, do you have some examples or case studies of how people are using HR integrations amongst your extremely broad customer base?
Yes, there's a lot of great use cases that have actually broadened beyond what I could have expected when we first started the company. So one example is Culture Amp. They currently use Merge to offer 60 HRIS integrations across every continent. So what they use Merge for is allowing companies to connect their HR systems so that they can pull org chart information. So someone's first name, last name, who their manager is, where they're located, and that those insights can provide a lot of information that they can then build a product experience around. Other similar companies that also use us, Bonusly, 15Five, we've even expanded to some security use cases where having that org chart information is very helpful for making sure that a company has a great security posture. Expense management companies are now also using us as well. So we've been working with companies like Brex and Ramp to help them pull in their org chart information so they can automatically provision or deprovision access to credit cards, allow people to build controls around that as well. So it's been really exciting seeing how that people data has really become more and more important across many software platforms.
Perfect. And maybe you can add in on that, what some of the success metrics around community building alumni use, because I know you talked about this at our recent conference, the alums in New York. You talked about metrics and ROI. Can you talk about some HR ones for us?
Yeah, I think again on HR systems, really it is about how many people you're putting into your community, and not just how many people are in the community and what percentage of people join when they leave, but there's also, obviously you can start to subdivide that because you understand which parts of the organization people leave from, but you can capture some other stuff during that process. During the registration process, we can capture things like the Net Promoter Score. And you can start to understand through the HRS integration and the Net Promoter Score data that we capture on their way in. Okay, so not just what are you doing with your alumni network and how many people are in it, but people who come from different business units or different geographies, how do they feel about the organization after they leave it? It's really, really useful broader HR information to understand that as well. And one of the other really cool use cases we've seen in HR, we have a number of customers that don't only use this for people who have left their organization. We have some that use this for their active employees. And actually, we've even got some that use this for what we call silver medal candidates, people who have applied for jobs as well. But those organizations that use this for active employees, integrating with the HR system means that the day that they join the company, they can automatically join the alumni network. Why would they do that? Because perhaps that's where you hold things like community and charity groups or D&I groups, etc. And people remain interested in those well after they leave the organization as well. But I think those measures really, it is around network size, but it is around, where are those people coming from? What are the business units that are within our organization that are really yielding the most alumni? How happy are they with the organization after they left? So it can feed back information, not just for re-recruiting or doing business, but also allowing you to measure the happiness of your workforce effectively. You're kind of post-surveying them, as it were.
That's a good way to think about it. Thank you. And so we've touched on core HR systems. What are some of the specific use cases around CRM integration? So we know most of our customers, especially those in professional services, are keeping track of people who've left, keeping track of people who are clients. And of course, alumni teams spend an enormous amount of time reaching out to those people and keeping them warm. And then, of course, in the hope that business gets done. So maybe you can talk about a couple of success metrics around revenue generation. And Shenzi, maybe you can share some examples of how people are using CRM integration. Owen, start with you.
Yeah, of course. And I think, with CRM, it comes back to really creating revenue tends to be the prime use case. Although having said that, CRMs have become the universal bucket of data for lots of organizations, right? And they get used for loads of different things. We tend to think of Salesforce as a sales tool, but that's not necessarily the case. They are absolutely used for a broad range of marketing activities. So yes, you can measure how many sales leads you're getting in from the alumni network and how much of that turned into business, but you can also be doing things like measuring marketing outreach. And what that's turned into as well. It's used by a lot of organizations for thinking around things like events and other communications. So I think in terms of the ROI, I probably won't go too much onto those other measurements. We covered them a little bit before, which is, hey, measure how many things are coming in and how many things are successful out of your CRM is super easy to do. But I'm really interested, Shenzi, to hear about, we tend to think about it, really from alumni networks perspective, really interested to hear about what else you see CRM integrations for.
CRM integrations have become really popular with new AI use cases. I feel like a lot of companies, especially now, with a combination of AI, are trying to think of new ideas for what the limits of data in a CRM could be. So some customers that we currently have include lead generation. So Telescope is a great company that currently helps you generate new leads with CRM integrations. We also have another customer called Rilla, which is a ride-along call recording software for like plumbers or construction workers, and they've been doing extremely well recently, and they use our CRM integrations as well. Other examples are sales insights, sales ops tools. There's so many great use cases with CRM data, and it's exactly what you said, Owen. There's a lot of information that can come out of there. So it's been very exciting to see.
And I might add one thing, if I may, around the whole CRM use case. So a little bit like my comment about ROI being critical, because in terms of HR, it helps teams explain why they need more budget and how alumni creates more boomerang hires. With the CRM, you want to be able to show people, obviously, we create revenue rewards for the company that we work for. So in that vein, I think it's important as well, because, sometimes sales reps or just business development or partners or salespeople take all the credit for sales that take place with some of your customers. But of course, the alumni team are often hard at work keeping those people warm, staying in touch, sending them relevant content, helping them with their career, whatever else it might be. So I also think, again, from not justifying the budget that you have and justifying the budget you ask for, but it's really important to most alumni managers that I speak to be able to show why the work they do is very important, impactful into a business. And I think that CRM integration is one where you can say, look, we've had 7 integrations with that person. 7 interactions with that person over the course of the year. They've asked us this question. This is something they've been really interested in. We've given them insights and information on a topic that they find really useful for their career. So I think, again, it feeds back in for alumni teams. And maybe I'll ask for sort of one more use case, not to weigh you down on use cases, but just one for ATSs. And Owen, you can explain more than ATSs before we get a question potentially from someone. But maybe you can talk about, one-click application increases. What are the broader success metrics around job applications with merge and with integrations?
Let me start with what ATS is, applicant tracking system.
Nice. Being
the platform that you use when you're hiring people and you want to interview them, and you can see exactly who you've got and where they are in the process, etc. So in terms of, the use cases, the most obvious one is one-click application. One-click application is actually really important for a job. It really increases the number of people that apply for roles, like dramatically increases, not always by tens of percent, but sometimes by hundreds of percents in terms of number of people that apply. It has a downside, which is sometimes people are a little indiscriminate. If they know that they can one-click apply, they will apply for loads of stuff, whereas they have to put a lot of thought into filling in a form. But even where you've got people who are being a bit more indiscriminate, what it then tells you is, okay, well, this person may not have been super serious about this role, but we now know that they're open to work. So it is useful, not just for the applications, but in understanding where somebody is in their job life cycle. So we tend to think about what percentage of alumni will apply for a role over a 2 or 3 year period of membership in an alumni network. And that really differs from industry to industry because, different industries will have different lengths of tenure. So, there will be some organizations where their average tenure might be sort of 18 to 30 months, and then others where it could be like 7 years. But what we do see from a lot of organizations, obviously the percentage of people that they hire from their alumni network is growing. And we've got lots of customers who are firmly into double-digit percentages of their annual hires come from alumni. And that's really, really important. And it continues to grow. And the easier you make the application process, the higher that number goes as well. And the other thing that we really like to measure is understanding when an alumni applies for a role, what is their percentage chance of getting it? So we've seen on average anywhere between about sort of 38 and 44% of alumni, typically when they apply for a job, they get it, which is a phenomenal success rate. But there's obvious reasons why. And I'm not going to talk about the alumni use case today. I'm pretty sure everybody on the line knows, why boomerang hires work really well. But actually, that as a measurement metric is super important. I also think the one after that, and I mentioned it earlier, is time to hire. Because that is a killer for lots of organizations. If you've got anywhere between 15 and 35% churn in your business, then the cost of replacing all those people every year is phenomenally high. Now, we know that it can be a lot more cost effective to hire from your alumni network, but speed to hire is really, really important. And because you've got good quality of information, you've got an easy application process, you've got all of the data. If you've got one-click apply, you've got their full profile, you've got all of their information straight away. Very often we've got lots of that verified as well. So that time to hire, I think, is super important. In the long tail, one of the things is length of tenure when they rejoin as well, because there is lots of great evidence that shows that alumni hires stay longer in an organization, so they further reduce your churn in the long term.
Well, they're faster to hire, they stay longer, they're productive faster, they're less likely to be a bad hire, which is disruptive and expensive. So the list is long. And I know, having a look who's on the line today and who signed up, it's sort of weighted heavily between alumni managers, HR, and actually we've got quite a lot of technical people today, given that you and Shenzi are on the line. But I think that people are pretty clear. I mean, I remember back in even as late as 2019, 2-3% of companies' hires were from boomerangs. Today, I mean, of course, job tenure is only 1 to 3 years. So as you say, the churn is massive. But today, that number ranges from sort of 10 to 35% across global businesses. I mean, we did some research 2-3 months ago, so absolutely substantial. And I'm sure everyone listening knows that. Shenzi, one question for you, just to talk through how you see people are using ATS integrations and how it's really helping them before I get to the final couple of questions, because we're already 45 minutes in.
So the use cases are very similar to what Owen was talking about with job boards and enabling that one-click application, making it really easy for companies to offer an easy way to add a candidate to their ATS system. So we have companies like Gem, Fetcher, really making it easy to source candidates and then adding them to an applicant tracking system.
Perfect. Okay. Well, look, I've got 2 or 3 questions. We'll see what we can squish in, and I can see more questions coming in. Owen, maybe you could talk briefly about how easy an integration is with Merge, because ultimately we don't have a stake in Merge. We're not doing this webinar for any reason other than it is the provider that we found after doing an enormous amount of work to make.
We don't have a stake. That sounds a mistake.
You're right. You're right. We'll deal with that afterwards. Shenzi, as a result of this webinar, we'd like some shares. But maybe we can talk and just say why we chosen Merge and why it's easy and why it's easy without an IT team. Thank you.
Yeah, that's really important. So I mentioned earlier why it was easy for us as a company. Super great. Nobody wants to know that. They want to know why it's interesting for them, easy for them. So think about the process. The way that it works for a lot of organizations is that it will take weeks or months to potentially build a connector and test it, etc. The experience with Merge, I remember the first time that it was demoed to us. And it was literally a case of being emailed a magic link. And with that magic link, you input the credentials from your HRIS system and your credentials from the enterprise alumni system. And that was it. It was connected. I mean, so very often when we talk to customers now, we talk about, hey, look, integrations can take hours. As opposed to taking days, weeks, or even months. The reality is the integration piece of this actually takes minutes. It's insanely straightforward. The IT teams will have more questions about it than the actual process of doing it. It will take longer to answer their questions than actually connecting the systems. It's ridiculously easy because Merge are already integrated with us completely, and they're already integrated with the system that's going to be integrated. So they're already integrated with Salesforce or Microsoft Dynamics or Workday, etc. It's already plugged in. So they just have to connect the credentials. It's brilliant.
Maybe you can talk quickly a little bit about sort of standard versus bespoke logic without getting too detailed, because I think there's a big difference between saying I'm going to integrate my systems and they're going to speak to each other and use Merge, or there's some clever stuff that I want to do that's a bit more engineering. Maybe you can quickly touch on that, and then I keep saying I've got 1 more question or 2 more questions. We've still got 5 minutes. We're good.
Yes. So the way the integrations work is we've integrated with Merge using all of our standard fields, and we can also take custom fields in as well. And Merge, and Shenzi, obviously kick me under the table if I get any of this wrong. Merge are integrated with all of these vendor systems with all of their standard fields. So if you're using Salesforce and using all the normal fields, that will just plug together automatically. It just works. If you've heavily customized Salesforce, so you've got 1,500 completely custom fields that are not in Salesforce's normal APIs, and you want some complicated business logic, if this, change data point to that before poking in, etc., then that's not an instantaneous, just switch it on and it takes 7 seconds integration. So that's probably worth pointing out. However, we had a look at the integrations that we've done over the last 5 years, And Merge covers more than 93%, I think it is, of our use cases, of our customers' integrations. So for the vast majority, they are just pretty instant.
Thank you for that. Shenzi, maybe you can pick up on this again, and then Owen, probably from the mind of a customer and speaking to a customer. What are we talked a little bit about privacy concerns and obstacles, but what are the implications on security and compliance when dealing with integrations? Because I picked that up at the end because it's frustrating and boring, but we all have to go through these sorts of things. Can you chat us through that?
Absolutely. Because there's so much information being shared, and you're really sharing sensitive information, especially if it's HR data or candidate information, you want to make sure that the partner that you're working with is trusted. Who are the other customers that they work with? Are they certified? What is their security posture? And especially if the partner that you are working with has invested a lot in it, that's always a great sign. But if you're a company that's looking to add integrations for the first time, you have to think a lot about how you're protecting your customers' data. That's always very important. And so it is a big responsibility to add those integrations.
Thank you. And Owen, a few thoughts about that from you, a little bit of security and compliance thought?
Well, to a lot of our customers who are on the line, security and compliance is absolutely everything and the most important thing. So, you know, we again, as Shenzi was saying, we have to treat that data as the most precious thing because it is our customers' reputations ultimately that are important. So both us and Merge treat that data not just in a compliant way with the compliance certifications that we have, but it is core to both of our companies. That data security is and compliance is the most important thing to most of our customers. And that's probably a real differentiator for both of our organizations as well, something where we're a little bit different to the rest of the playing field.
Perfect. And maybe for both of you, I can frame the question slightly differently to end. So maybe Shenzi, when would Merge be a good fit for our customers from your perspective? And Owen, maybe you can talk about that because basically we've been on a couple of years, well, many year journey on integrations, but we've been looking over the last 12 to 18 months and we've landed on Merge. So maybe Shenzi, you can talk about it from a broader perspective, and Owen, you can pick up from an alumni perspective.
If you are building a product that needs integrations, whether it is HR information, recruiting information, accounting information, ticketing information, CRM information, file storage information, Merge is a great fit for you. It's very expensive and difficult to build and maintain integrations in-house, and there's no reason why anyone should be doing that. So if you are hearing your company is struggling with this, definitely reach out to merge.dev.
Do, or well, we can obviously connect. There's a lot of people on the line where we're talking to them about Merge for integrating their systems with enterprise alumni, but of course we can also make that connection. Owen, some last thoughts from you on that topic?
Yeah, and I'm now about to wish that I had stock in Merge because I'm going to use this as a quick ad for you, Merge, really. So, you know, when is Merge useful? From the enterprise alumni perspective, any customer coming in, the thing you should do on day one is an HRIS integration. It's the number one thing you should do. It automatically grows your community. Without a size of community, you can't get any value. So you should absolutely do it. And for the vast majority of you, Merge will plug that together really, really quickly within hours. What I would say is that we've had a really extensive integrations team for a long time. And in fact, we got our integrations team, we got an ex-banking integrations team. They're really specialist, really high value. But we spent a lot of time looking for a partner that was able to do the things that Merge can do. And there are very few of them out there. We think Merge is pretty unique. I would say to all of our customers who are listening, of course, come and talk to us about integrations with enterprise alumni. That's what we want all of you to do. But likewise, do you know what, for lots of the requirements you'll have outside of the alumni use case, you should definitely speak to Merge. They are, for many of you, they have got the right level of security and compliance that you need and the integrations with the vendors that you're going to be interested in. So definitely drop Shenzi a line with your IT teams for stuff outside of alumni as well.
Yeah, I mean,
but the other thing I would, sorry, go on, Emma, apologies. I was going to say the flip side to when is Merge right? We do sometimes have requirements where people have got things that are super complex on the other end, and they need to build loads of business logic. Sometimes they'll use our APIs for that, but also that's potentially something that Mergent and Enterprise Alumni can look at together in terms of bespoke requirements for organizations.
Yeah, or look, sometimes it's also complicated, also personal, or the system is, you know, a legacy system, and sometimes we have to build bespoke logic, and that's totally fine. I think what we're looking here is to just think about how we can get as quickly as possible from A to B on sort of relatively standard integrations that, as Shenzi's been saying, have been so hard and so expensive for so many people to do and maintain. And lo, there is Merge, and we are all pleased. All right, well, look, fantastic. I know that we have loads of questions. I think I've answered or asked at least 95% of them. For the couple I haven't got to, I can see who they are, and I'll make sure we follow up. All that remains is to say both to Shenzi and to Owen, well, I probably don't need to thank you because you were so pleased I effectively called you tech gurus at the start of the call, but thank you for joining us. I will say that this is so important. It's something we discuss with everybody, and it doesn't feel some of the time that discussing a technical point such as integrations is necessarily relevant to a wider audience, but this helps answer the question for everybody that I go back to that I started with at the beginning, which is when you're trying to show return on investment, when you need more budget, when you need to count things, when you need to report things, we have lots of ways to do that. And we have Power BI, and we have our dashboards, and we have our custom reporting, and the list is long. But if the systems are speaking to each other and we can make that happen faster and cheaper than it used to be, then we all win. So Shenzi, thank you. Owen, thank you. Thank you to everybody for joining. And there'll be some follow-ups with some of the points from today that you might find helpful. Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Bye, Shenzi.